I thought a paid-in-full notice meant I could finally breathe, until my mortgage portal said I had an authorized agent, and the county recorder showed a power of attorney. I never signed. When I called my mom, she called it a gift. Then my insurance changed. A new lender welcomed me, and I realized someone had been practicing my name. The envelope felt heavy in my hand, heavier than a standard billing statement. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of gray, unremarkable day where the mail is usually just a collection of flyers for window replacements and credit card offers I do not need. But this one was different. It was from Redwood Crest Servicing, my mortgage lender, and the paper stock felt thick, expensive. I stood on my front porch, shivering slightly in the autumn chill, and tore the flap open. I pulled out a single, crisp sheet of paper. The words were printed in bold, centered capital letters that seemed to shout at me from the page. Paid in full. I stared at it. The world around me, the sound of the neighbor's leaf blower, the distant hum of traffic on the interstate, seemed to drop away. Paid in full. I read it again, my eyes scanning down to the loan number, the property address. It was my house. It was my loan. And according to this document, the balance was $0. For 10 seconds, I felt a rush of pure, unadulterated relief. It was a physical sensation, like a heavy coat slipping off my shoulders. I thought about the monthly payments that ate up 40% of my paycheck. I thought about the spreadsheet I kept on my laptop, tracking the 28 years I had left until I actually owned this place, gone, just like that. But then the rational part of my brain, the part that works in logistics and manages shipping schedules for a living, kicked in. Banks do not make mistakes in your favor. They certainly do not accidentally forgive $300,000 of debt. I looked closer at the letter. That was when I saw it. The addressee line read, Ms. Natalie J. Ross. I froze. My middle name is Jean, but I never use the initial, not on my driver's license, not on my tax returns, and definitely not on my mortgage documents. When I signed the closing papers 3 years ago, I was adamant about using just my first and last name. I like the clean look of it. Natalie Ross. The J was wrong. It looked like a typo, or something copied from a very old school record. A cold prickle of unease started at the base of my neck. I went inside, locking the door behind me, and sat down at the kitchen island. I opened my laptop and logged into the Redwood Crest portal. My hands were shaking just a little, enough that I mistyped my password the first time. When the dashboard loaded, the numbers confirmed the letter. Principal balance, $0. Next payment, none. I clicked on the transaction history. There was no wire transfer from my bank account. There was no large inheritance check I had deposited and forgotten about. The entry for yesterday simply read, Loan satisfied by authorized third party. I clicked on the status tab. Instead of active, the loan status was listed as transferred/closed. Below that, a notification box in bright yellow text stated, This loan has been satisfied and the lien will be released. Servicing rights are being reassigned pending final settlement. Satisfied by authorized third party. Who is the third party? I picked up my phone to call the customer service line. But something stopped me. I needed to see the source. If the loan was paid off, a document had to be recorded with the county. Public records move slower than bank portals. But if this was real, it would be there. I navigated to the county recorder's website. It is a clunky, outdated system that smells of government bureaucracy even through a digital screen. I typed in my last name, then my first. 2 new results popped up, filed just 24 hours ago. The first was a satisfaction of mortgage. I opened the PDF. It looked standard, full of legal jargon about the release of the lien. But then I opened the second document, the one linked to it, limited power of attorney. I felt the blood drain from my face. I stared at the screen, zooming in until the pixels blurred. It was a document granting specific authority to manage real estate transactions regarding my property address. And at the bottom of the page, above a black line, was a signature, Natalie Ross. It looked like my signature. It had the same sharp slant to the N. the same loop on the double S at the end. To a stranger, it would look authentic, but I know how I sign things. I know that when I am rushing, I do not close the top of the A. This signature was perfect. It was too perfect. It looked like someone had practiced it. I scrolled down to the notary block. The stamp was round and blurry, but I could make out the words clearly enough. State of Ohio, County of Franklin, notarized by Brenda L. Halloway, Caldwell Junction, Notary Services. I have never been to Caldwell Junction, Ohio. I have never been to Ohio. Period. I sat back in my chair, the silence of the house pressing in on me. The relief from the letter had curdled into nausea. Someone had forged my signature to give themselves power over my home. And then they had paid off my mortgage. It made no sense. Criminals steal money. They do not pay off debts, unless... My phone was in my hand before I made the conscious decision to dial. There was only one person who used that middle initial J when she was angry or trying to be formal. There was only one person who had access to my old files. My social security number and my history. Marilyn Ross, my mother. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright and breathless, the way she sounds when she has had 2 glasses of Chardonnay and is feeling magnanimous. Natalie, I was just thinking about you. Did you get anything interesting in the mail today? The air left my lungs. She knew. She was waiting for the call. Mom, I said, my voice sounding hollow in the empty kitchen. Why did I get a letter saying my mortgage is paid off? There was a pause, a theatrical beat of silence where I could practically hear her smiling. I wanted it to be a surprise, she said, her tone dripping with performative sweetness. A blessing. I know how stressed you have been about work, and I came into a little bit of luck. So I thought, why not? I handled the paperwork so you would not stress. You are free. Natalie, the house is yours. She said it as if she had bought me a sweater, not altered the legal status of my biggest asset. You handled the paperwork? I asked, gripping the edge of the counter. Mom, I saw the county records. There is a power of attorney document signed by me, notarized in Ohio. I did not sign that. Her tone shifted instantly. The sweetness evaporated, replaced by the sharp, defensive edge I had spent 33 years trying to avoid. Oh, stop it, she snapped. It is just a formality. I had to sign for you to get the payment processed. It is standard procedure when you are helping family. You always get so hung up on the details that you miss the big picture. The details? I almost shouted. Mom, you forged my signature. That is a crime. And you notarized it in a state I have never visited. I did it for you, she cried out, her voice rising to a pitch that usually signaled tears were coming. After everything I have done, after I wipe away your debt, you cannot just be happy. You have to look for the trap. This is why you are alone. Natalie, you push away every good thing because you do not think you deserve it. The guilt hit me like a physical blow. It was her signature move, the pivot from aggressor to victim in less than 5 seconds. For a moment, I wavered. Maybe I was being crazy. Maybe she really had come into money, an inheritance from a distant relative, a lottery win she had not mentioned, and she just cut corners to surprise me. She paid off $300,000. That is a life-changing gift. Maybe I should just say thank you. I took a deep breath. Mom, I need to understand what happened. Where did the money come from? It is an investment program, she said, her voice smoothing out now that she felt she was winning. I am managing it. Do not worry about the boring parts. Just enjoy your life. We can celebrate this weekend. I will bring lasagna. She hung up before I could ask another question. I stared at the phone. My heart was racing, a frantic thumping against my ribs. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. Imagine waking up and having no mortgage. Imagine the freedom. I needed a reality check. I texted Kara. 10 minutes later, Kara Mendez was in my kitchen, looking at the letter and the laptop screen. Kara is a paralegal who sees the worst in people for a living, which makes her an excellent friend for someone like me who tries too hard to see the best. She did not look relieved. She looked terrified. Natalie, "This is not a gift," she said, pointing a manicured nail at the power of attorney document on the screen. "This is a control move. You do not forge a power of attorney just to pay a bill. You do it to take the wheel," but she paid it off. I argued. Though my voice lacked conviction, why would she pay it off if she wanted to hurt me? Because a paid-off house is an asset with 100% equity. Kara said grimly, "If she has power of attorney, and the house is free and clear, she can do whatever she wants with it. She can take out a new loan. She can transfer the deed. She can sell it." The room seemed to tilt. "Call the servicer," Kara ordered. "Right now. Put it on speaker." I dialed the number on the letterhead. I navigated the automated menu, my patience fraying with every robotic prompt. Finally, a human voice came on the line. "Redwood Crest Servicing. This is Jason. How can I help you?" "Hi," I said. "My name is Natalie Ross. I'm calling about my mortgage. I received a letter saying it was paid in full, but I did not authorize a payoff." "One moment, Ms. Ross. Let me pull up your file." I heard the clicking of a keyboard. Then the clicking stopped. "Ms. Ross," the agent said. His voice suddenly guarded. "I see the note here. The loan has been satisfied. However, I cannot discuss the specifics of the transaction with you at this time." "What?" I asked. "It is my mortgage. I am the borrower." "I understand that, ma'am. But there is a designated agent flag on your account. All inquiries regarding the payoff and release of lien must be directed through the authorized party on file." "Authorized party?" I demanded. "You mean my mother? I am revoking that authorization right now. I never signed it. I cannot change the authorized party status over the phone." The agent said, sounding like he was reading from a script designed to avoid liability, "You will need to submit a notarized affidavit of identity theft if you wish to contest the designation. Otherwise, please contact your agent." He hung up. I looked at Kara. She looked pale. "They locked you out of your own loan," she whispered. I stood up, grabbing my keys. "I need to go to the bank." "Which one?" "Pine Hollow, where my autopay comes from. If she moved money, or if she touched my checking account, they will know." I drove to the branch in the center of town, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I have banked with Pine Hollow Community Bank since I was 16. I know the branch manager, Susan. She asks about my job every time I come in to deposit a check. The bank was quiet, the air conditioning humming. I walked straight to Susan's desk. She looked up and smiled, but the smile faltered when she saw the look on my face. "Natalie? Is everything okay? I need to see my account history." "Susan, right now. I think there has been unauthorized activity." She gestured for me to sit. She typed in my account number, her brow furrowing as she stared at the screen. "I do not see any large withdrawals." "Natalie," she said slowly, "your balance is normal. Look closer." I said, "Look for anything weird, anything recent." She scrolled down. "Well, there were 2 micro deposits last week, 32 cents and 18 cents, usually. That happens when you are linking your account to an external service or a new app. Did you set up a new digital wallet?" "No," I said. "I have not set up anything." Susan stopped typing. She turned the monitor slightly away from me, a protective gesture, and there was a verification call noted on the log. 4 days ago. A woman called to verify the amounts of the micro deposits to finalize a link. I felt cold. I did not make that call. Susan looked at me, her expression shifting from friendly to professional concern. "The caller verified your social security number and your mother's maiden name. Natalie, did you recently authorize a third party to manage identity verification? There is a note here that a durable power of attorney was emailed to our back office. She has the bank, too." I stood up, my legs feeling like lead. "Freeze it," I said. "Freeze everything. No money goes in. No money goes out." "I will need to send this to the fraud department," Susan said gently. "But Natalie, if the POA is valid, unfreezing it might be difficult without a court order." I walked out of the bank into the bright afternoon sun. It felt like a spotlight. I felt exposed. My mother had not just forged a document. She had systematically inserted herself into the infrastructure of my life. I had one more stop. Hearthstone title. Escrow. They handled my closing 3 years ago. If a satisfaction of mortgage was filed, they might have been the ones to process the title work. The office was only a few blocks away. I marched in, ignoring the receptionist's cheerful greeting, and asked for the title officer who had handled my file. He was not available. Instead, a woman I did not recognize came out. She was wearing a beige cardigan and a tight smile that did not reach her eyes. "Ms. Ross?" she said. "Yes," I said. "I want to know who filed the satisfaction of mortgage on my property. I want to see the file." She clasped her hands in front of her. "I am afraid I cannot do that. Ms. Ross, we have had a policy update regarding privacy and third-party settlements. We cannot release internal documents without written consent from all parties involved in the transaction." "I am the party," I said, my voice rising. "It is my house." "I understand your frustration," she said, her voice dropping to a hush, as if trying to soothe a child. "But given the sensitivity of the family trust arrangement—" "Trust arrangement?" I cut her off. "What trust?" She blinked, looking confused. She glanced at a file on the desk behind her, then back at me. "Oh, I apologize. I assumed." Given the conversation with Ms. Ross, Sr., she stopped, realizing her slip. "You spoke to my mother?" I asked, stepping closer. "You think she is the client?" The woman took a step back. "I really cannot speak further without a subpoena or written authorization. Please, Ms. Ross, we are just following instructions." I walked out before I started screaming. That night, I sat in my living room with the lights off. The house, which usually felt like my sanctuary, now felt like a cage. I kept looking at the walls, wondering if I really owned them anymore. I opened my laptop again. There was one more thing I needed to check: my homeowner's insurance. I logged into the insurer's website. My policy was there, but there was a banner at the top of the page. Change request pending. I clicked on it. Request to change loss. Payee. Current. Redwood Crest Servicing. Proposed new payee. Marilyn Ross. I slammed the laptop shut. This was not about helping me. This was not about paying off a debt. This was a takeover. She was removing the bank so she could become the bank, if the house burned down. She got the money. If I sold the house, she would have to sign off on it. She was trying to rewrite the ownership control around my house until I was just a tenant in my own life. I grabbed my phone. I was done asking. I texted her. "Send me every document you touched. The POA, the satisfaction, the bank authorization, everything." The response came almost instantly. "Of course. I will bring a folder over tomorrow morning. I have everything organized. Stop worrying." It was too easy. She agreed too quickly. A woman who screams about being ungrateful does not suddenly become cooperative unless she thinks she has already won. Then, 3 dots appeared. A second message bubbled up. "Don't do anything dramatic." My stomach dropped. It was a command, not a request. It was a warning. Innocent people do not send texts like that. Mothers who are just trying to help do not warn their daughters against being dramatic. I looked around the dark living room. For the first time in my life, I was not just annoyed by my mother, I was afraid of her. I went to the front door and engaged the deadbolt. Then I slid the chain lock into place. It felt like a flimsy defense against the woman who had already walked right through the walls of my privacy, armed with nothing but a pen and my name. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the settling groans of the house. I realized then that the paid-in-full letter was not an ending. It was a notice of eviction from my own reality. And the war had just begun. I closed my eyes, but I did not sleep. I waited for morning, and for the folder that would tell me exactly how much of my life I had already lost. Marilyn arrived at 9 o'clock sharp, bringing a gust of expensive perfume and a manic energy that vibrated off her like static electricity. She did not look like a woman who had just committed a felony. She looked like a real estate agent arriving to close a deal. dressed in a sharp navy blazer and holding a rigid, navy blue plastic folder. She breezed past me into the kitchen, setting the folder on the quartz countertop with a decisive thwack. "Coffee?" she asked, moving toward the machine as if she still lived here, as if she hadn't lost her key privileges 2 years ago after she reorganized my pantry without asking. I stood by the sink, arms crossed, feeling the cold porcelain against my lower back. I did not want coffee. I wanted answers. "Sit down. Mom." She paused, the coffee pod hovering over the slot. She turned, her smile tightening at the edges. "You are so serious this morning. Natalie, I brought donuts." I ignored the bakery box. I pointed to the folder. "Tell me what is in there. Tell me exactly what you did." Marilyn sighed, a long, theatrical exhalation that signaled I was being difficult. She abandoned the coffee and sat at the island, placing her hands on the folder like she was protecting state secrets. "It is a solution, Natalie. That is what it is. I found a program. It is called the Debt Freedom Initiative through Silvermark Financial Solutions. It is very exclusive. They work with families to leverage equity for asset protection." "Asset protection," I repeated, "by forging my signature?" She waved her hand dismissively. "It was a proxy signature. It is standard in these types of expedited settlements. The market moves fast. Natalie, if we had waited for you to read every single line and wring your hands over every clause, we would have missed the window. I did what any good mother would do. I made the executive decision." She slid the folder toward me. I opened it. Inside, the papers were organized with terrifying precision. Color-coded tabs, highlighted sections. It was too neat. It looked like a prop from a movie about a successful business, not the chaotic pile of paperwork that usually accompanies a mortgage transaction. I pulled out the first document. It was titled, "Agreement for Debt Satisfaction and Collateral Management." I started reading. The language was dense, intentionally opaque, but certain phrases jumped out at me, sharp and dangerous. "Borrower agrees to the assignment of all proceeds to the managing agent. Property may be subject to collateral replacement at the discretion of the lender." And then, on page 4, a paragraph in all caps. "All disputes arising from this agreement shall be resolved solely through binding private arbitration in the state of Nevada. Borrower waives all rights to civil litigation or jury trial." I looked up at her. Collateral replacement? Assignment of proceeds? "Mom, this says you can swap my house for something else. It says if I sell the house, the money goes to the managing agent." "Who is the managing agent?" "You are reading it wrong." She said quickly, "That is just legal boilerplate. It means if we decide to move you to a smaller house later, the program helps with the transition. It is flexibility." "Natalie, and the arbitration clause?" I asked, tapping the paper. "Why Nevada? We live in Oregon. If I have a problem with this, I have to fly to Las Vegas to fight it?" "It is for tax purposes," she said, her voice taking on that glossy, informative tone she used when she was repeating something she did not actually understand. "All the big financial firms are based in Nevada or Delaware. It is normal." I looked at the signature at the bottom of page 4. It was mine again. Perfect. Practiced. I felt a wave of nausea. This was not a gift. This was a shackle. I stood up. "I am calling them." Marilyn's eyes widened. "Who?" "Silvermark. I am calling them right now." I picked up my phone and dialed the number printed on the glossy letterhead. Marilyn stood up. Reaching across the island, "Natalie, do not embarrass me. They are very high-level people. You do not just cold call the directors." I turned my back to her and walked into the living room. The phone rang and rang. Then a robotic voice picked up. "Thank you for calling Silvermark Financial Solutions. For new accounts, press 1. For existing client services, press 2. I pressed 2. Please enter your 6-digit file number." I scanned the documents. There was a file number on the top right corner, 884-209. I punched it in. File located. "Please hold for the next available associate." The hold music was a tinny, distorted classical piece that sounded like it was being played underwater. I waited. 1 minute, 5 minutes. Marilyn was hovering in the doorway, chewing on her lower lip. Finally, a click. Silvermark Solutions. This is Brad. Brad sounded bored. He sounded like he was sitting in a room with no windows. Hi, I said. My name is Natalie Ross. I am calling about file number 884-209. Verification code? Brad asked. I do not have a code. This is my file. It is my mortgage. I cannot proceed without the verification code. Ma'am. I looked at Marilyn. She was studying her fingernails. Mom, I whispered harshly. What is the code? She shook her head. I do not know what he is talking about. I turned back to the phone. Look, I do not have a code because I never signed up for this. Someone opened this account in my name. I need you to tell me exactly what the terms are and how to cancel it. There was the sound of typing on the other end. Ma'am, I see the file here. The account is active and in good standing. However, you are listed as the beneficiary. I can only discuss account modifications with the authorized agent. And who is the authorized agent? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Marilyn Ross, Brad said. I closed my eyes. Of course, I am Natalie Ross. Marilyn is my mother. She forged my signature. I am telling you right now, this is fraud. That is a civil matter between you and the agent, Brad droned. If you wish to dispute the authorization, you need to submit a claim through the arbitration portal. He hung up. I lowered the phone slowly. I looked at my mother. She was not looking at me. She was adjusting the cuff of her blazer, smoothing out a wrinkle that did not exist. You are the agent, I said. You own my debt. I am managing it, she corrected, looking up with defiance in her eyes. I am the shield. Natalie, you are the beneficiary. That means you benefit. Why do you always have to twist things into a conspiracy? I walked over to the front door and opened it. Leave, I said. Natalie, leave the folder and get out of my house. She stood up, grabbing her purse. You are making a mistake. You are going to ruin this. Just like you ruin everything else. I paid off your house. Get out, I screamed. She flinched. It was the first time in 10 years I had raised my voice to that volume. She hurried past me, her perfume turning sour in the air. As she reached the porch, she turned back. Do not call them again, she hissed. You will trigger a default clause. She marched to her car. I slammed the door and locked it. Then I slid down to the floor and put my head in my hands. I was trembling. A default clause? What did that even mean if the loan was paid in full? I needed a lawyer, a real one, not the family friend who did my will. I needed a shark. Diane Klein's office was in a glass building downtown, the kind of place where the reception desk costs more than my car. Kara had recommended her. She eats predatory lenders for lunch, Kara had said. Diane was small, sharp-featured, and wasted no time on pleasantries. She sat behind a desk covered in organized chaos. Wearing reading glasses on a chain, she listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she sat back and took off her glasses. Natalie, she said, her voice gravelly and serious, you need to understand something. Paid in full is a marketing term. In the legal world, it is just a status. And in this case, it is bait. Bait for what? I asked. For the hook, she said. She tapped the folder I had brought. This Silvermark group? They are not a charity. They are hard money lenders disguised as debt relief. What your mother likely did was take out a bridge loan. She used the bridge loan to pay off your legitimate mortgage. That creates the illusion of freedom. You see the zero balance. You drop your guard. But why? I asked. What is the point of swapping one loan for another? Because the new loan is not a mortgage. Diane said. She opened the folder and pointed to the fine print I had struggled with earlier. This is a commercial instrument. It is not subject to the same consumer protections as a residential mortgage, no foreclosure protections, no grace periods. And look here. She pointed to the collateral replacement clause. This means they have securitized your home. She explained, but they have also created a mechanism to swap the lien. If the authorized agent, your mother, defaults on the payments to Silvermark, they do not just foreclose, they can claim immediate title, or more likely, they can force you into a new, high-interest loan to save the house. It is a predatory cycle. They break your leg so they can sell you a crutch at 500% interest. I felt cold. So I do not own my house anymore? You own the deed, Diane said. But the deed is encumbered by a fraudulent lien held by a shell company that requires arbitration in Nevada. It is a mess. Natalie, a sophisticated mess. She looked me in the eye. You said there was a power of attorney? Yes, I found it on the county website. That is the nuclear weapon, Diane said. As long as that document exists and is recorded, your mother is effectively you. She can sign for loans. She can change insurance. She can transfer the deed. We need to kill that POA immediately. How? I will file a revocation today, Diane said. But that only stops her from using it tomorrow. It does not undo what she did yesterday. For that, we need to prove fraud. We need to prove the signature is fake. I thought about the notary stamp. Caldwell Junction, Ohio. I can get the notary log. I said, if I was not in Ohio, I could not have signed the book. Diane nodded. Do it. Call them. Email them. Get that log. If the notary book shows you were there, we prove you were at work. If the book is missing, we have them on negligence. But Natalie, she leaned forward. Be careful. These companies, Silvermark, and whoever is funding them, operate in the gray. They do not like people who ask questions. I drove home feeling like I was navigating a minefield. The safety of my routine was gone. Every car behind me felt suspicious. Every phone notification made me jump. When I got home, I immediately looked up Caldwell Junction Notary Services. It was a generic website, just a landing page with a phone number and an email address. No photos of staff, no physical address other than a P.O. box. I sent an email first, formal and direct, requesting the notary journal entry for the date on the power of attorney. Then I called. It went to voicemail. I left a message. My name is Natalie Ross. I am contesting a notarization performed by Brenda L. Halloway. I need to see the logbook immediately, or I will be filing a complaint with the Secretary of State. 20 minutes later, I got an email reply. It was unsigned. We only provide notary logs pursuant to a court-issued subpoena. We do not respond to informal requests. A dead end. But then, my phone buzzed. It was a number I did not recognize. Local area code. Hello? I answered. Hey, Nat? The voice was male. Smooth. And oddly intimate. He said my nickname like we had gone to high school together. Who is this? I asked, gripping the phone tighter. Just a friend, the man said. Heard you were asking about Brenda in Ohio. You know, you really should not bother good people who are just doing their jobs. My heart hammered against my ribs. Who are you? How did you get this number? Does not matter, he said. Look, your mom is trying to do a good thing for you, a really big thing. You are going to mess it up if you keep poking around in Ohio. Brenda is a nice lady. Leave her alone. Is this a threat? I asked, my voice shaking. No. Nat, it is advice. Enjoy the paid-off house. Go buy yourself something nice. Stop digging. You might not like what you find at the bottom of the hole. The line clicked dead. I stared at the phone. He called me Nat. Only my closest friends call me Nat. And he knew about the email I had sent 5 minutes ago. They were watching, or they were inside my email. I changed my email password immediately, my fingers stumbling over the keys. Then I called Marilyn. I did not care about her warning. I did not care about the default clause. She picked up on the first ring. Did you calm down? She asked. Who is the man? I demanded. What? A man just called me. He told me to stop looking into the notary in Ohio. He knew my nickname. He knew I had emailed them. Who is he? Mom? Who are you working with? Marilyn was silent for a moment. Then she let out a short, nervous laugh. You are being paranoid. Natalie. Maybe it was someone from Silvermark just trying to clarify things. Clarify things? I shouted. He threatened me. He told me to stop digging. Mom, these are criminals. You are working with criminals. I did this to protect you, she screamed back, her voice suddenly shredding into hysteria. You do not understand. I am saving you. Protect me from what? I yelled. I have a job. I pay my mortgage. I have an 800 credit score. I do not need saving. From your own irresponsibility, she shrieked. The words hung in the air, vibrating in the silence. I stood in my kitchen, the phone pressed to my ear, feeling the absurdity of the accusation wash over me. I have never missed a payment. I have never been overdrawn. I drive a 6-year-old car because it is practical. Irresponsibility? I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. Mom, I have been supporting myself since I was 22. You are the one who declared bankruptcy in 2010. You are the one who borrowed money from Grandma and never paid it back. That is different, she insisted, but her voice was shaking. Life happens. Natalie, you are too rigid. You think you are safe because you follow the rules, but you are not. You are one bad day away from losing everything. I secured the asset. I put it in a trust structure. Now nobody can take it from us. It is my house, Mom, not ours. It is family property, she cried, and I am the matriarch. I decide how we leverage our assets. I hung up. I could not listen to it anymore. The delusion was absolute. She honestly believed that my financial stability was a vulnerability, and that her reckless gambling with my deed was safety, but her words stuck with me. You are one bad day away from losing everything. I sat down at my computer. If she thought I was irresponsible, maybe she had done more than just fix my mortgage to prove it. I pulled up my credit report. I have a subscription to a monitoring service, but I usually only check the summary. This time, I downloaded the full PDF. I scrolled past the mortgage, which still showed as closed on the report. I scrolled past my student loans. I scrolled past my credit card, and then I stopped. Under the section for commercial and business credit inquiries, there was a new entry, entity, Natalie R., Ross Consulting, status, active line of credit, lender, Harborlight Funding Group, opened, 14 days ago, limit, $50,000. I have never owned a business. I have never been a consultant. I clicked on the address associated with the business. It was not my house. It was 4420 Pine Street, Suite B. I Googled the address. It was a strip mall. Suite B was a place called Pack Ship Express, a rented mailbox. She had not just stolen my house. She had created a shadow version of me. A corporate Natalie who could take out business loans that did not show up on my personal consumer credit report until they went into default. I felt a cold clarity settle over me. This was not just a scam. It was an identity harvest. I called Kara. Come over. I said, bring your laptop. We need to build a timeline. Kara arrived 20 minutes later with a bottle of wine and a grim expression. We sat at the dining room table, spreading out the papers, the screenshots, and the notes. Okay, Kara said, opening a spreadsheet. Let's map it out. When did the first domino fall? We worked backward. Day 1. The mysterious microdeposits hit my bank account. Day 2. The verification call to the bank. The woman who knew my mother's maiden name. Day 3. The power of attorney is notarized in Ohio. Day 4. The satisfaction of mortgage is recorded. Day 5. The insurance change request. Day 6. The business line of credit is opened for Natalie R., Ross Consulting. Day 12. I received the paid in full letter. 12 days. Kara whispered, staring at the screen. They dismantled your entire financial identity in less than 2 weeks. This is not amateur hour. Natalie, this is a blitzkrieg. It is coordinated. I said, you cannot do all this without help. The bank, the insurance, the recorder's office, it all happened too fast. Kara pointed to the satisfaction of mortgage entry on the county site. Look at the filing stamp. Who filed it? I squinted at the screen. It says, filed by HTE Courier Services. HTE, Kara said. Hearthstone Title Escrow? I felt a jolt. I went there. They told me they were not involved. They said it was a policy update. Kara typed furiously. HTE Courier Services is a subsidiary. If they filed it, they touched the document. The woman at the title company, I said, remembering the beige cardigan and the tight smile. She slipped up. She called me Ms. Ross Sr. She knew. She expected my mom. Kara looked at me. Natalie, your mom has an inside man. Or woman. You do not get a forged satisfaction recorded that fast unless someone at the title company walks it through. I stood up. I'm going back to the recorder's office. I need to see the physical paper. I need to see who signed the intake form. It is 4:30. Kara said, they close at 5. I can make it. I drove like a maniac to the county administration building. I ran through the metal detectors, ignoring the grumbling guard, and sprinted up the stairs to the recorder's division. The clerk was a tired-looking woman with gray hair who was already shutting down her computer. I need to see a document. I panted. Book 402, page 88. Satisfaction of mortgage. We are closing. Honey, she said, come back tomorrow. Please, I begged. It is fraud. My house is being stolen. Please. She looked at my face, saw the desperation, and sighed. She walked over to the large filing cabinets where the recent hard copies were kept before permanent digitization. She pulled out a file. Here it is. I looked at the cover sheet. It was the standard county intake form. At the bottom, there was a field for submitted by. It was scrawled in blue ink, Hearthstone title /Courier 4. And below that, a signature of the person who accepted the filing at the counter. But what caught my eye was a sticky note attached to the back of the document. It was bright yellow, and it had been left there by mistake. Likely by the courier, on the note, in handwriting that looked rushed, were 3 words. Priority, R.V., favors, R.V. I stared at the initials. I did not know anyone with those initials. Who is Courier 4? I asked the clerk. She glanced at the paper. That is usually the run service for Hearthstone. They come in every morning. I took a picture of the document, the signature, and the sticky note with my phone. Thank you, I whispered. I walked out of the building into the cooling evening air. The sun was setting, casting long, distorted shadows across the parking lot. I had names. I had a timeline. I had a fake business. And I had a mysterious set of initials, R.V., that seemed to be the key to the back door Hearthstone had left open for my mother. I got into my car and locked the doors. I checked the back seat. The paranoia was a constant hum now, a background noise to my life. My phone buzzed. A text from Marilyn. I hope you are happy. You are stressing me out so much I'm having chest pains. If I end up in the hospital, it is on you. I stared at the screen. The guilt was automatic, a reflex honed over decades. But then I remembered the irresponsibility comment. I remembered the Natalie R. Ross consulting debt. I remembered the man who called me Nat. I deleted the text without replying. She was not the victim here. She was the weapon, and I was done standing still. I put the car in gear and drove toward the one place I knew she would not look for me. The address of the fake business. I was going to see exactly what Natalie R. Ross Consulting looked like in the dark. Diane wasted no time. By the next morning, she had filed emergency notices of pendency, also known as WIS pendens, with the county recorder. Effectively flagging the property title as the subject of a lawsuit, it was a legal flare gun designed to warn off any potential lenders or buyers that the house was radioactive. She also sent aggressive demand letters to Redwood Crest Servicing, Hearthstone Title, and Silvermark Financial Solutions. I saw the drafts. They were beautiful in their brutality, accusing the companies of negligence, aiding and abetting identity theft, and failure to exercise due diligence. I expected a fight. I expected a call from a corporate lawyer threatening to countersue. Instead, we got silence from Hearthstone and Silvermark. Redwood Crest, my original lender, responded 48 hours later with a generic email addressed to Diane. Dear Ms. Klein, please be advised that the loan in question has been satisfied in full. The account is closed. We no longer hold an interest in the property. Any inquiries regarding new encumbrances or the current status of the title must be directed to the new instrument holder. A release of lien has been transmitted to the county. They were washing their hands of me. To them, I was just a former customer who had paid off her tab. They did not care that the money had come from a poisoned well. Diane sat across from me in her office, tapping a pen against her desk. "They are moving the shell game," she said. "They paid off the first loan to remove the big bank's oversight. Now the property is floating in a gray area until the new lien is recorded. We are in the gap, Natalie, and the gap is where they do the damage." "What happens next?" I asked. "We wait for the other shoe to drop," she said, "and we pray the judge grants our temporary restraining order before it does." The shoe dropped 2 days later. It arrived via a FedEx truck that pulled up to my curb at 10 in the morning. I was working from home, or trying to. I had spent the last 2 hours staring at a spreadsheet for work. Unable to make the numbers make sense because my brain was busy calculating how long I could live in my car if I lost the house. The driver handed me a stiff cardboard envelope. I signed for it, my hand shaking so badly the stylus skidded across the screen. The return address was simply Client Services, HFG. I took it into the kitchen. I used a paring knife to slice it open. Inside was a glossy, heavy paper folder, the kind high-end realtors use. On the cover, in gold foil, were the words, "Welcome to the Harborlight family." I opened it. "Dear valued client, congratulations on the closing of your new home equity line of credit and asset management account. We are thrilled to partner with you in unlocking the potential of your property." I felt the blood drain from my face, leaving me lightheaded. I flipped the page to the loan summary. Borrower, Natalie R., Ross Consulting. Co-borrower, by authorization, Marilyn Ross. Collateral, 1402. Maplewood Drive. Loan amount, $250,000. Interest rate, 12.5%. Adjustable, $250,000. I had owed less than that on my original mortgage. She had not just refinanced me, she had stripped every cent of equity I had built over 5 years and loaded it with an interest rate that would suffocate me in months. I flipped to the signature page. There it was again, my name, Natalie Ross. But this time, looking at it under the bright kitchen lights, something felt wrong. Not just wrong in the sense that I had not signed it, but wrong in its texture. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to Diane's office. I did not call ahead. I just walked in, past the receptionist, and threw the folder on Diane's desk. "They did it," I said, my voice cracking. "They funded the loan, $250,000. Diane put on her glasses. She opened the folder, her face impassive. She scanned the terms, the rate, the collateral, predatory. She muttered, 12% in this economy? This is a hard money loan dressed up as a bank product." She turned to the signature page. She stared at it for a long time. Then she opened her drawer and pulled out a magnifying loupe. She leaned down, her nose almost touching the paper. "Natalie, come here," she said. I walked around the desk. "Look at the ink," she said. Or rather, look at the lack of it. I peered through the glass. The signature looked black and sharp. "When you sign with a wet ink pen," Diane explained, "the ink bleeds slightly into the paper fibers. You see pressure variations, where the pen pushed harder on the downstroke. Where it lifted on the upstroke, I looked closer. The lines were perfectly flat. There was no bleed, no indentation in the paper." "This is a high-resolution image," Diane said. Sitting back, "It is a digital stamp. They took a scan of your signature, probably from the power of attorney or an old document, and they pasted it here. Is that legal?" I asked. "In some cases, electronic signatures are legal," she said. "But usually, you use a verified platform like DocuSign, where there is a digital audit trail of the IP address and the time of signing. This is a cut-and-paste job. It is good enough to fool a clerk at the county recorder's office who is scanning 500 documents a day, but it is not good enough to fool a forensic examiner." She looked at me, a fierce glint in her eyes. "This is sloppy, Natalie. And sloppiness is how we catch them, but the money is funded." I said, "Where is it?" Diane pointed to the disbursement sheet. "Funds wired to Ross Family Management Account. Silvermark Custodial Services. It is not in your account, she said. It is in an account your mother controls. I felt a sudden, sharp clarity. The money was gone. I knew it in my bones. Marilyn was terrible with money. If she had access to $250,000, it would burn a hole in her pocket within 48 hours. I need to talk to her. I said, Diane warned me. Be careful. Anything you say can be twisted. Do not admit to anything. I am not going to admit anything. I said, I am going to get her to admit it. I did not go to her apartment. I did not want to give her the home field advantage, and I did not want her in my house again. I called her, Mom. I said when she answered, I am not angry anymore. There was a long pause. I could hear the television in the background, some daytime talk show. You are not? She asked, her voice cautious. No, I lied. I am confused. I got the packet from Harbor Light. I see the numbers. $250,000. That is a lot of money. Mom, it is for investment, she said quickly, the relief evident in her voice. It is going to grow. Natalie, I have a system. I took a deep breath. I needed to sound like the daughter she wanted me to be. Pliable, trusting, a little bit stupid. I know you want to help. I said, but Diane, my lawyer, she says if this is fraud, I have to report it. And if I report it, the police get involved. I do not want that. Mom, I do not want you to go to jail. She would not go to jail. Marilyn scoffed. But there was a tremor in it. This is a civil contract. Mom, please, I said, letting my voice break. Just tell me the truth. If you tell me the truth, maybe we can fix it. Maybe I can tell the lawyer to stop. But I need to know. Why did you do this? Silence. The television noise stopped. She must have muted it. I was drowning. Natalie, she whispered. The admission hung in the air, heavy and wet. What do you mean? I asked gently. The credit cards, she said. The car payments. The old loans from when I tried to start the catering business. It all piled up. The interest. It eats you alive. I was going to lose my apartment. So you took my house? I did not take it, she insisted, her voice rising again. I borrowed against it. Just for a few months. I met this man. He told me about the program. He said we could pay off your mortgage, pull out the equity, invest it in a high-yield bridge fund, and pay off everything, my debts, your debts. In 6 months, we would refinance you back into a normal loan and keep the profit. It was the classic gambler's fallacy, the magic fix, the one big score that wipes the slate clean. Who is the man? Mom? It does not matter, she said. He is helping us. And the money, I asked? The $250,000? Where is it? It is invested, she said. Is it? Or did you pay off your debts? There was a silence so profound I could hear her breathing. I had to, she said, her voice small. To clear the decks, but the rest is invested. It will make it back. I promise. How much is left? Mom, Natalie, how much? She started to cry. Ugly, ragged sobs. It is gone. She choked out. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. Gone? All of it? In 3 days? There were fees. She sobbed. The program fees, the activation costs, and I paid off the cards, and I sent the rest to the bridge fund. But now what? Now I cannot log in, she whispered. The website. It says under maintenance. I closed my eyes. She had been scammed. She had scammed me, and then she had been scammed by the people who helped her scam me. It was a nesting doll of betrayal. Mom, I said, my voice cold. You have to come to the lawyer with me. You have to testify. No, she shrieked. I cannot. Why not? You are the victim too, right? If they stole the money, we go to the police together. We cannot, she screamed. They will come after us. Who? Who will come after us? You do not understand, she said, her voice dropping to a terrified hiss. These are not bank people. Natalie, they know where you live. They know where I live. If I talk, if I say I did not have authority. She stopped. If you say what? I pushed. They said I would be liable. She said. They said if I try to back out, I go to prison for fraud. They have my signature on the intake forms. They made me sign a confession. Natalie, just in case. A confession? They called it an affidavit of sole responsibility. She wept. I signed it because I thought it was just paperwork. I felt a sickness in my gut. They had locked her in. They knew she was desperate and greedy, and they used that to turn her into the perfect fall guy. Mom, listen to me. No, you listen. She interrupted. Do not fight the loan. Just pay the interest. I will get a job. I will help you pay it. But do not fight them. Please. She hung up. I sat there, holding the phone, staring at the welcome packet on the table. My mother had sold me out for a debt relief scam, and now she was asking me to pay the ransom. I could not sit in the house. The walls felt like they were closing in. I needed to see the enemy. I pulled up the address for the fake business again. 4420 Pine Street, the place where Natalie R. Ross Consulting was born. But I also remembered the address on the Harbor Light packet. It was different, but local. A generic office park on the north side of town. I drove to the strip mall first. It was a sad little row of shops, a vape store, a nail salon, a payday lender, and a place called Northgate Filing Agency. This was the address connected to the notary, the rented mailbox, and the document prep service Marilyn had mentioned in passing. I parked across the lot and watched. It did not look like a criminal enterprise. It looked like a place where you go to get your taxes done cheaply. I put on my sunglasses and walked in. The front room was small, smelling of stale coffee and toner. There was a reception desk manned by a woman with purple streaks in her hair who was aggressively typing on her phone. "Can I help you?" she asked without looking up. "Hi," I said, trying to sound breezy. "I am here to pick up a packet for Marilyn Ross?" The woman paused. She looked up. Her eyes narrowed. "Ross? I do not have a pickup scheduled for Ross. My mom said it was ready." I lied. "It is the loan modification paperwork." The receptionist glanced at a shelf behind her. It was stacked with manila folders, dozens of them, maybe 50. She stood up and ran a finger along the tabs. "Ross? Ross? No. That file was moved to processing." I looked at the tabs as her finger passed them. Halden, Larkin, Gomez, Vance. They were all family names, all perfectly labeled. "Wait," I said, "is that Tessa Larkin's file?" "My mom knows her. Maybe she picked them up together?" The receptionist turned around, her body blocking the shelf. "Who are you?" she asked. "I am Natalie." I said. "You need to leave," she said. "We are closed to the public. Appointment only." I saw the stack of folders. I saw the industrial scale of it. This was not just my mother meeting a guy at a church workshop. This was a factory. I walked out, my heart pounding. I memorized the names I had seen. Halden, Larkin. I got back in my car and called Kara. "Kara, I need you to search for something. Look for complaints against Silvermark and Harbor Light. But search for the phrase rapid lien swap." "Why?" Kara asked. "Just do it." 2 minutes later, she called me back. "Natalie," she said, her voice tight. "I am on a consumer protection forum. There are 3 threads. People in Ohio, people in Florida, people here. They all tell the same story. A relative, usually an elderly parent or a financially distressed sibling, gets convinced to unlock equity to pay off debts. They sign a POA. The original mortgage gets paid off by a shell company, then immediately replaced by a high-interest commercial loan. It is a pipeline." I said, "Yes," Kara said. "And the worst part? When the homeowners fight it, the company produces the POA. The police say it is a civil family dispute. The company walks away with the interest payments or the deed, and the family implodes. They are using our mothers as battering rams." I said, "Natalie," Kara said, "if this is a network, they are not going to like you poking around Northgate Filing Agency." "I know." I said, "but I have names now. Halden and Larkin. I am not the only one." The next 3 days were a blur of legal adrenaline. Diane filed for a temporary restraining order, TRO, to block Harbor Light from dispersing any more funds or taking any enforcement action against my house. The judge set a hearing date, but it was 5 days away. 5 days is an eternity when money is moving at the speed of wire transfers. In the meantime, the system continued to turn against me. I received an email from my homeowner's insurance carrier. Notice of policy change, effective immediately. The primary loss payee on your policy has been updated to Harbor Light Funding Group. Please note that any claim checks will be issued jointly to you and the lien holder. I stared at the screen. If my house burned down tonight, Harbor Light would get the check. They had successfully insulated themselves. They had the deed, via the lien, the cash flow, via the loan, and the insurance. I felt a deep, simmering rage. It was different from the panic I had felt at the beginning. Panic is hot and chaotic. This was cold. I forwarded the email to Diane. Add this to the evidence pile. That night, the house felt too big. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like an intruder. I double-checked the locks. I checked the windows. At 11:30, my phone rang. It was Marilyn. I hesitated. I did not want to talk to her. I did not want to hear her excuses or her weeping, but I picked up. Hello? I did not do the notary part, she whispered. Her voice was barely audible, like she was cupping her hand over the phone. What? I asked. The notary, she said. In Ohio? I did not do that. I signed the other papers here, in the coffee shop. But the notary stamp, I never saw that. Who did it? Mom? I told you, she said rapidly. The man. He took the papers. He said he had a mobile verification team. He brought them back the next day with the stamps on them. What man? I asked, pressing the phone to my ear. Is it Ronan? The man with the initials R.V.? There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. How do you know that name? She asked, her voice trembling with terror. I saw the sticky note. Mom, who is Ronan Vale? Natalie, stop, she begged. You do not know who these people are. He is not just a financial advisor. Then who is he? She started to cry again, but it was different this time. It was the quiet, hopeless crying of someone who realizes they have stepped off a ledge. I met him through the church friend, she said, but I think he knew about me before we met. He knew about my debts. He knew about your house. He knew everything. She paused. He said if I warned you, he would send the file to the police, the confession I signed. Let him send it. I said, we will fight it. No, she whispered. He said he would send it to your work. He said he would ruin you. Natalie. He said he would make it look like we did it together. My stomach turned over. That was the leverage. Not jail. Mutually assured destruction. Mom, tell me where you met him. I have to go, she said. He is calling me on the other line. Mom, I did not mean to hurt you, she whispered. I really didn't. The line went dead. I sat in the dark, the silence of the house pressing against my ears. He is calling me on the other line. She was still in contact with him, or rather, he was in contact with her, keeping her on the leash. I looked at the folder of evidence I had gathered, the fake signature, the strip mall address, the list of victims. Diane was right. This was a sophisticated mess. But Marilyn had just given me a thread. She didn't notarize the documents. That meant the notary in Ohio was purely fraudulent, not just a favor for a lady present in the room, but a complete fabrication, and Ronan Vale, R.V., was the architect. I stood up and walked to the window. A car drove slowly down the street, its headlights sweeping across my lawn. It slowed down in front of my house, then accelerated away. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was a neighbor. But as I watched the taillights disappear, I realized that the paid-in-full notice was never about the money. It was an invasion. And the invaders were still circling. The ballroom of the Pine Hollow Community Center smelled of roast chicken, floor wax, and the specific, cloying perfume my mother had worn since I was a child. It was the annual Heart of the Valley fundraiser, an event where the town's self-appointed nobility gathered to pat themselves on the back for donating to the food bank. I should not have been there. My lawyer, Diane, had advised me to maintain distance. My friend Kara had told me I was a masochist. But when Marilyn texted me the invitation, a digital image with a caption that read, "Please come, I am accepting the service award," it would mean the world to have my family there. I caved. I caved because habit is a muscle that does not atrophy overnight. I caved because part of me was still a little girl waiting for her mother to be the hero she pretended to be. And part of me, the new, colder part, wanted to see if she could look me in the eye while she was being applauded for her selflessness. I stood in the back, near the bar, nursing a club soda. The lights dimmed, and the spotlight hit the small stage. The moderator, a local news anchor with teeth that were too white, leaned into the microphone. "Our next honoree is a woman who defines the word sacrifice," he boomed, "a woman who has quietly supported our local shelters, organized the holiday drive, and always puts others before herself. Please welcome Marilyn Ross." The applause was genuine. That was the worst part. They loved her. They clapped for the version of Marilyn Ross that existed in the public imagination. The tireless volunteer, the struggling single mother who made good. They did not know about the forged signatures. They did not know about the $250,000 loan strapped to her daughter's house like a bomb. Marilyn walked onto the stage. She looked radiant. She was wearing a silver dress I had never seen before, likely bought with the proceeds of the bridge loan. She took the crystal plaque and wiped a theatrical tear from her eye. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling just the right amount. "We do not do this for the recognition. We do this because family is everything, and this community is my family." I felt like I was choking. The hypocrisy was a physical weight in my throat. Family is everything. I watched her smile, basking in the adoration, and I realized with a sick clarity that this was her drug. The money was just a means to maintain the high. She stole my equity to buy this dress, to buy this moment, to keep the lights on in the theater of her life. I set my glass down on a high-top table. The ice clinking loudly, I had to get out. I turned toward the exit, pushing past a table of elderly donors. I made it to the lobby. The air cooler there, the noise of the applause muffled by the heavy oak doors. I leaned against the wall, trying to slow my breathing. "You are her daughter, aren't you?" The voice was low, tight. I looked up. A woman was standing a few feet away. She was about my age, maybe a little older, with dark circles under her eyes and hair pulled back into a severe ponytail. She was wearing a caterer's uniform, white shirt, black pants, but she wasn't holding a tray. She was holding a purse, gripping the strap with white-knuckled intensity. I recognized her, not from here, but from the file tab I had seen at Northgate Filing Agency. "Tessa," I said, "Tessa Larkin." Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't step back. "You know my name," she said. "I saw it," I said, "on a file folder, at the document prep place." Tessa let out a breath that sounded like a laugh. But there was no humor in it. It was just exhaust. "Your mother did this to you too?" she asked. It wasn't an accusation. It was a password. A secret handshake for a club nobody wanted to join. "Yes," I said. Tessa nodded, looking at the closed doors of the ballroom where the applause was dying down. "My aunt," she said. "She raised me. She is the closest thing I have to a mom. 2 months ago. She told me she paid off my condo. Said she won a settlement from an old car accident. I was so happy I cried." "And then?" I asked. Knowing the answer, and then the letter came. Tessa said, "From a company called Summit Peak Capital, same address as your Harborlight Group. They said I owed them $180,000. My aunt forged my name on a quitclaim deed, transferred the title to herself, took out the loan, and then transferred it back with the lien attached. She told me she was leveraging our portfolio." The language. I whispered, "It is the same script." Tessa opened her purse and pulled out a folded sheaf of papers. "Look at this," she said. She handed me a document. It was an arbitration agreement. I unfolded it. The formatting was identical to mine. The font was the same sans serif style. The header was centered in the exact same way. Read Clause 4, Tessa said. I read it. All disputes shall be resolved in the state of Nevada pursuant to the rules of the Private Asset Management Association. It is the same, I said, word for word. Tessa flipped to the back page. Look at the notary. I looked at the stamp. Caldwell Junction Notary Services. Brenda L. Halloway. She notarized yours too? I asked. In Ohio? I have never been to Ohio, Tessa said. Neither has my aunt. This is a factory. Natalie, they have a template. They find someone in the family who is desperate, someone who feels entitled, or someone who is in debt, and they give them the tools to rob the people they love, and they make it look like love. I looked at the ballroom doors again. I could imagine Marilyn in there, holding her plaque, feeling righteous. Did you report it? I asked. Tessa took the papers back, smoothing them out with trembling hands. I tried, she said. I went to the police. They told me it was a civil matter because it involved family property. They said unless I wanted to press criminal charges for forgery, they could not help, and if I press charges, she goes to jail. I finished. Tessa looked at me, her eyes wet. She raised me. Natalie. She sat by my bed when I had pneumonia. She paid for my college books. How do I put her in handcuffs? But if I don't, I lose my home. I am working double shifts just to pay the interest on a loan I never asked for. I felt the conflict in her chest resonating in my own. It was a sickening paralysis. The system relied on that love. The scammers knew that the hardest thing in the world is to destroy the person who made you. We have to do it, I said. My voice sounded foreign to me, cold and hard. Tessa shook her head. I can't. Not yet. I can, I said. I turned and walked out of the community center, leaving the sound of my mother's triumph behind me. I walked into the cool night air, and for the first time, I did not feel like a daughter. I felt like a plaintiff. The next morning, I sat in Diane's office. I told her about the fundraiser. I told her about Tessa. Diane listened, her face grim. This confirms the pattern. She said, it is a racketeering operation. They are recruiting the mules, the mothers, the aunts, and using them to bypass the security measures that usually stop identity theft. A stranger cannot get your social security number and your mother's maiden name easily. A mother already has them. I want to file the report. I said. Diane looked at me over her glasses. Are you sure? Natalie? Once you file a police report for identity theft and forgery, you start a machine you cannot turn off. The district attorney might pick it up. Your mother could face felony charges. I thought about the welcome packet. I thought about the fake business. I thought about the way she looked on that stage, accepting an award for service while she drowned me in debt. She did not give me a choice. Diane. She made herself the criminal. I am just the witness. Diane nodded slowly. She reached into her drawer and pulled out a file. I drafted the affidavit. She said, we stick to the facts. We do not speculate on her motives. We do not talk about her debts. We simply state, I did not sign this. I did not authorize this. This is a forgery. I took the pen. My hand hovered over the paper. I felt a phantom pain in my chest, a severing of the oldest tie I had. But then I remembered the text. Don't do anything dramatic. I signed. The police station was nothing like the movies. It was quiet, smelling of floor cleaner and old coffee. I sat at a metal desk across from Officer Miller, a man with a kind face and tired eyes. He read through the affidavit. He looked at the copies of the forged power of attorney and the Harbor Light loan documents. This is a lot of money, Ms. Ross, he said. $250,000. Yes, I said. And you are naming your mother, Marilyn Ross, as the suspect? I am naming her as the person who presented the documents. I said, sticking to Diane's script. I do not know who created them, but she is the one who used them. Officer Miller sighed. He tapped the edge of the paper on the desk. I will take the report, he said. We will generate a case number. That will help you with the credit bureaus. You can use it to put a freeze on the files. But what about the fraud? I asked. What about stopping them? He leaned back in his chair. I am going to be honest with you. Natalie, these cases are nightmares. We have to subpoena records from the bank. Then we have to subpoena records from the notary in Ohio. Then we have to prove who actually signed it. The district attorney looks at these and sees family dispute. They see a daughter who maybe agreed to help her mom and then changed her mind when the bill came due. I did not agree. I said, my voice rising, I believe you, he said gently, but proving it beyond a reasonable doubt takes time. Months, maybe a year. And the lender? I asked. HarborLight? They are charging me interest right now. He gave me a sympathetic look that made me want to scream. The criminal system moves at the speed of government. Ms. Ross, lenders move at the speed of business. You need to keep fighting this in civil court. Do not wait for us to save the house. We likely won't get there in time. I walked out of the station with a folded piece of pink paper, my case number, and a hollow feeling in my stomach. I had nuked my relationship with my mother, and all I had to show for it was a reference number. I was driving back to work when my phone rang. The caller ID was blocked. I answered, thinking it might be Diane. Hello? Ms. Ross? A cheerful male voice boomed. This is Kevin from HarborLight Funding. How are you today? I froze. I pulled the car over into a pharmacy parking lot. I do not have a contract with you. I said, Oh, but you do, Kevin said, his voice dripping with aggressive friendliness. We see the loan has funded. Congratulations again. I am just calling to welcome you and to set up your auto pay. We like to get that squared away before the first payment hits. I am not paying you. I said, The loan is fraudulent. My lawyer has sent you a demand letter. Kevin chuckled. It was a dark, wet sound. Lawyers send lots of letters. Ms. Ross, but the deed is recorded. The lien is active. And frankly, refusal to cooperate is a breach of the agreement. I hung up. 10 seconds later, the phone rang again. I ignored it. It rang again. I picked up. Stop calling me. Natalie, Kevin said, his voice dropping an octave. No more cheerfulness. Look, we are trying to be flexible here. We know you are busy. We know you work at the logistics center until 6 every day. We know you take your lunch break at 12:30. I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. Are you threatening me? We are just saying we can accommodate your schedule, Kevin said, but we need to secure our interest. If you are going to be difficult, we have other ways to collect. The collateral is quite valuable. It would be a shame to accelerate the foreclosure process over a misunderstanding. How do you know my schedule? I whispered. We verify everything. Natalie, we are very thorough. Tell your mother we said hello. She has been very helpful. He hung up. I sat in my car, looking at the mundane activity of the parking lot, people buying milk, picking up prescriptions. They had no idea that a voice on the phone could reach into your life and strip away your sense of safety in 30 seconds. They were watching me. They knew where I worked. They knew my hours. And they were using my mother as the conduit. Tell your mother we said hello. I needed to see the face of this thing. I couldn't get to HarborLight. They were a ghost in a machine, but I could get to the people who opened the door. Hearthstone title escrow. I put the car in gear. I was done being polite. I stormed into the Hearthstone office. The receptionist looked up, startled. I need to see the manager. I said, Now, he is in a meeting. I walked past her, down the hallway, to the corner office with the glass door. I pushed it open. A man was sitting behind the desk, eating a sandwich. He was balding, soft-faced, wearing a polo shirt with the company logo. Can I help you? He asked, wiping mustard from his lip. My name is Natalie Ross, I said, slamming my hands on his desk. Your company recorded a fraudulent satisfaction of mortgage on my home. Your courier service filed it, and your employee stonewalled me. I want the file. Now. The manager stood up. Ms. Ross, you cannot just barge in here. We have security. Call them. I dared him. Call the police. I just came from the station. I have a case number for felony forgery. Do you want to be added to the report as an accomplice? He paled slightly. Look, we just processed the paperwork given to us. We are a neutral third party. Neutral? I laughed. You filed a sticky note that said, favors for R. V. Who is R. V? He blinked. I do not know what you are talking about. I looked around the office, looking for anything that would link him. My eyes landed on a bookshelf behind him. It was filled with cheap trophies and framed photos. And there it was. It was a group photo. 10 people standing in front of a banner that read, Caldwell County Community Leadership Breakfast. In the center of the group was the manager, and standing right next to him, beaming that same radiant smile she had worn at the fundraiser, was Marilyn Ross. I reached out and grabbed the photo. Hey, the manager shouted. Put that down. I held it up to his face. Neutral third party? I asked, my voice shaking. You know her. The manager's eyes darted to the door. She is a community member, he stammered. We serve on a committee together. That does not mean... She recruited you, I said, or you recruited her. Which is it? Did Ronan Vale introduce you? At the mention of the name, the manager stopped moving. He went completely still. Get out, he said quietly. I took a picture of the photo with my phone before he could stop me. I am leaving, I said, but I'm coming back with a subpoena, and I'm going to bury this place. I walked out, my legs trembling. It was a web, a small-town web where everyone knew everyone, and favors were traded like currency. My mother wasn't just a victim of a distant corporation. She was part of a local cell. I drove home, constantly checking my rearview mirror. I half expected to see a black SUV following me, or Kevin from Harbor Light. When I turned onto my street, the sun had gone down. My house was dark. But there was a car parked across the street. It was a white sedan, my mother's car. She was sitting in the driver's seat. The engine was off. The lights were out. She was just sitting there, staring at my front door. I pulled into my driveway and hit the garage door opener. I drove inside and closed the door before I got out. I did not want to talk to her. I could not look at her without seeing the welcome packet and the police report. I went inside and locked the door. I checked the windows. My phone buzzed. A text from Marilyn. We need to talk before you make this worse. I stared at the screen. Before I make this worse? She was not asking for forgiveness. She was not asking for a chance to explain. She was managing me. I was the glitch in the system. I was the loose end that needed to be tied up so the investment could proceed. She was sitting outside my house like a sentry, or a prison guard. I did not reply. I went to the kitchen and poured a glass of water, my hands shaking. I needed to know what else they had done. If they had the mortgage, and they had the insurance, what was left? The deed. I opened my laptop. I had bookmarked the county recorder's site. I refreshed the page. Nothing new under my name, but then I thought about the trust. The Ross Family Home Trust she had mentioned during our fight, the one she claimed would protect us. I searched for the trust name. One result found, pending. I clicked on the details. Document type, quitclaim deed. Grantor, Natalie Ross. By attorney-in-fact, Marilyn Ross. Grantee, the Ross Family Home Trust. Trustee, Marilyn Ross. She was not just encumbering the property, she was transferring the ownership. I looked at the date. It was filed yesterday. It was in the processing queue. If this went through, I would not even own the house anymore. I would not be the owner fighting a lien. I would be a stranger living in a house owned by a trust controlled by my mother. She could evict me. I realized then why she was outside. She wasn't just watching. She was waiting for the deed to record. She was waiting for the moment when she could walk up to the door, key in hand, and tell me that, for my own good, for my own protection, she was taking over. I looked out the peephole. The white sedan was still there. A ghost in the darkness. I slid down the door until I hit the floor. I hugged my knees to my chest. They were taking the walls. They were taking the ground. And the person driving the bulldozer was the woman who had taught me how to walk. Diane acted with the precision of a surgeon cutting out a tumor. Within 4 hours of my discovery of the pending trust transfer, she had filed an ex parte petition with the civil court. It was a request for immediate injunctive relief. A legal stop sign slammed in front of the county recorder's office. We are not just pausing them, Diane told me, her voice tight with focus. We are freezing the ground they are standing on. She didn't stop there. She fired off a subpoena to Caldwell Junction Notary Services, demanding the physical journal for the date in question, not just a digital copy, and she hired Arthur Pendleton. Arthur was a forensic document examiner. His office was located in the basement of a nondescript building near the courthouse. A windowless room that smelled of ozone and dust. It was filled with microscopes, high-resolution scanners, and massive monitors glowing with spectral imaging. I sat on a metal stool next to him 2 days before the hearing. Arthur was a quiet man with thick glasses and hands that moved with delicate deliberation. He pulled up an image on the main screen. It was my signature from the power of attorney. Magnified 500%. The lines looked like roads on a map. This is what we call the questioned signature, Arthur said. And this. He clicked a button. Overlaying another image in translucent red is a known standard. This is from your driver's license application 3 years ago. I watched the two signatures mesh. They were eerily similar, but not identical. Now, look here, Arthur said, using a digital pointer to circle the top of the letter T in Natalie. Do you see that tiny bulb of ink at the start of the stroke? I squinted. Yes, that is a hesitation mark, he explained. When you sign your own name, you do it with muscle memory. It is a ballistic movement. You do not think about where the pen goes. Your hand just knows. But a forger? A forger has to look. They have to draw the name, not sign it. That split-second pause before the pen starts moving creates a pool of ink. He moved the pointer to the bottom of the loop on the S. And here, he said, see how the line has a slight tremor? We call that the tremor of simulation. It happens because the forger is moving the pen slower than a natural signer would, trying to match the shape of the model. I stared at the screen. The evidence was microscopic, but it was damning. It wasn't just a bad copy. It was a careful, deliberate construction. Someone practiced this, Arthur said softly. They likely traced a model signature onto the document first. You can see faint indentations in the paper fiber here, and then inked over it. It is a high-quality simulation. Whoever did this has done it before. I felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with the basement air. Someone had sat at a table, maybe at a kitchen table I knew well, and practiced becoming me. They had studied the way I crossed my T's. They had analyzed the slant of my handwriting. It was an intimacy that felt like a violation. Is it enough? I asked. Is it enough to prove I didn't sign it? Arthur turned to me. In my professional opinion? Yes, it is a simulated forgery. And given the complexity, I would say it was done by someone who had access to your original wet ink signatures to create the template. He didn't say the name, but he didn't have to. We both knew who had access to my old yearbooks, my report cards, my birthday checks. The next day, Tessa texted me. Meet me at Shelley's diner. Bring the lawyer if you want. There is someone you need to see. I went alone. I found Tessa in a booth in the back, sitting opposite a man who looked like he hadn't slept in a week. This is Greg, Tessa said. Greg Halden was in his late 50s, wearing a flannel shirt and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. He had the rough, weathered hands of a man who worked outside, but he was holding his coffee cup with a fragility that broke my heart. Tessa told me what happened to you, Greg said, his voice raspy. It is the same story? I asked. Greg nodded, staring into his black coffee. My house, my truck, even my pension. Who? I asked. Greg closed his eyes. My son, David. The name hung in the air between us. He told me he was helping me get a reverse mortgage. Greg said quietly. Said I could fix up the roof. Take a trip. I signed what he put in front of me. I trusted him. He's my boy. And then? Then the payments started coming out of my account. Greg said, not to the bank, to a company called Silvermark. When I called them, they said the interest rate had reset to 18%. I couldn't pay it. They took the truck last week. They served the foreclosure notice on the house yesterday. He looked up at me, and I saw the thing that was killing him. It wasn't the loss of the money. It was the shame. I raised him better than that. Greg whispered, I don't know where I went wrong. Maybe I pushed him too hard. Maybe I spoiled him. No, I said fiercely. Greg, look at me. You did not do this. They did this. He shook his head. He is my son. If I go to the cops, if I tell them he forged the other papers, he stops being your son and starts being a felon. I finished. Greg looked away, tears welling in his eyes. I can't do it. I'd rather live in a trailer than send my boy to prison. I looked at Tessa. She was watching Greg with a look of profound sorrow. This was the trap. This was the genius of the scheme. It relied on the fact that decent people would rather destroy themselves than destroy their families. It weaponized love. Listening to Greg, my sadness calcified into something harder, something hotter. I wasn't just angry at Marilyn anymore. I was furious at the mechanism. I was furious at the Ronin Vales of the world, who knew that a father's love was a weakness they could exploit for a 12% return on investment. I reached across the table and took Greg's hand. You don't have to do it, Greg, I said, but I do. And when I take them down, I am going to make sure they can't do this to anyone else's son. I thought I was prepared for the fight. I thought I had hardened my heart enough, but Marilyn knew my weak points better than I knew them myself. It was Wednesday. I was at work, standing in the open-plan lobby of the logistics center, reviewing a manifest with a driver. The lobby is a busy place, couriers coming in, clients waiting for meetings, the receptionists fielding calls. I heard the commotion before I saw it. Please, I just need to see my daughter. The voice was high, keen, and unmistakable. I froze. The driver looked at me. Is that for you? I turned around. Marilyn was at the security desk. She was not the polished, defiant woman from the fundraiser. She was a wreck. Her hair was messy, her eyes were red and swollen, and she was wearing a coat that looked too big for her. She spotted me. Natalie! She wailed, pushing past the startled security guard. She ran toward me, her arms outstretched. The entire lobby went silent. The receptionist stopped typing. The clients lowered their phones. Mom! I hissed, stepping back. What are you doing here? She collapsed at my feet, literally dropped to her knees on the polished concrete floor, grabbing my hand. Please, Natalie, she sobbed, loud enough for the entire building to hear. Please don't do this. Do not take me to court. I am your mother. Get up, I said, my face burning. I felt the eyes of my coworkers boring into my back. I felt the humiliation rising like bile. They are going to put me in jail, she cried, clinging to my pants. Is that what you want? You want to see your mother in a cage? Over money? I changed your diapers. I fed you. How can you be so cruel? The security guard, a nice man named Earl, stepped forward uncertainly. Ms. Ross? Do you need assistance? I looked down at her. She was weeping, shaking, a portrait of maternal devastation, but I looked closer. I saw the way her eyes darted to the side, checking to see if the receptionist was watching. I saw the way she positioned herself so the light hit her tears. This wasn't grief, it was a performance. She was bombing my sanctuary. She knew I valued my professionalism, my privacy. She was betting that I would do anything, agree to anything, just to make the scene stop. It was leverage, pure and simple. Something inside me snapped, the last tether of guilt, the one that had held me back from truly hating her. Severed. I knelt down so I was eye level with her. I kept my voice low, deadly calm. Stop it, I said. She hiccuped, looking at me with feigned confusion. Natalie, please, stop acting, I whispered. You are not the victim here. You stole my house. You forged my name. And now you are trying to use my job to blackmail me into silence. Her eyes hardened instantly. The tears stopped as if she had turned off a faucet. You ungrateful little... She started to hiss. Get up, I repeated, standing up and pulling my hand away. Earl, please escort this woman to the parking lot. If she comes back, call the police. Marilyn scrambled to her feet. The mask slipped completely. She looked at me with pure venom. You will regret this, she spat. You will die alone. Natalie, just like you deserve. Earl took her arm. She let him lead her away, but she kept looking back at me, her face twisted in a rictus of hate. I stood there, smoothing my shirt. The lobby was dead silent. I turned to the driver, whose mouth was slightly open. Where were we? I asked. Row 4. Pallet B? I finished the manifest. I walked to the bathroom. I locked the stall door, and only then did I let my hands shake. I didn't let her leave. I knew she would expect me to hide in the office, but I followed Earl and Marilyn out to the parking lot. I caught up to her just as she was unlocking her car. Earl stepped back, sensing I needed a moment. Who taught you? I asked. Marilyn spun around. Her face was streaked with mascara, but the vulnerability was gone. What? Who taught you how to do the scene in the lobby? I asked. And who taught you about the trust? And the notary? You are not smart enough to come up with this on your own. Mom, you can barely use Excel. Who gave you the script? She sneered at me. You think you are so superior. I think you are a pawn. I said, tell me his name. The real name. She laughed. A harsh, jagged sound. You think names matter? He is a ghost. Natalie. He helps people like me. People the system left behind. He is using you. I said, he used you to steal my equity, and he took the money. He left you with the debt and the criminal charges. I had no choice, she shouted, slamming her hand on the roof of her car. I was drowning. I went to the workshop at the church because I couldn't pay the electric bill. What workshop? The Financial Freedom Seminar. She said, he was there. Ronan. He sat with me. He listened. He didn't judge me for the bankruptcy. He said the system was rigged against single mothers. He said there was a legal reset button, a way to use the hidden value in family assets to clear the deck. Hidden value. I repeated. You mean my house? It is family property, she screamed. It is all the same pot. He showed me how to unlock it. He said if I followed the steps, the POA, the satisfaction, the bridge loan, I could pay everyone off and nobody would be hurt. And the forgery? I asked. Did he show you how to do that too? She looked away. He said sometimes you have to help people make the right decision. He said signatures are just ink. Intent is what matters. Ronan Vale. I said, she got into the car. You will never find him. And if you do, you will wish you hadn't. She peeled out of the parking lot, leaving me standing in the exhaust fumes. I called Diane from the car. It is Ronan Vale, I said. He is running workshops. He is recruiting them at churches. I am on it, Diane said. By the next afternoon, Diane had a dossier, or rather, a lack of one. Ronan Vale does not exist, Diane said, sliding a piece of paper across her desk. No driver's license, no credit history, no voter registration. It is an alias. So we are chasing a ghost? Not exactly, Diane said. We traced the corporate filings for Northgate Filing Agency, the place in the strip mall. The registered agent is a shell company called Blue Horizon Management. Blue Horizon is owned by Vantage Point Holdings, and Vantage Point Holdings was dissolved 3 years ago in Nevada, only to be reformed under the name Clearwater Assets. It is a hydra. I said, yes, but every hydra has a head. We found a connection. The lease for the Northgate office isn't in a company name. It is personal guarantor, a man named Robert Vane, R.V. I said, Robert Vane. Diane read, is a disbarred real estate attorney from Arizona. He lost his license in 2012 for trust fund commingling and notary fraud. He moved here 5 years ago. He keeps a low profile. No social media. But he runs financial literacy seminars in community centers and church basements. He finds the desperate, I said, and he turns them into criminals. Diane nodded. We have a name. We have a target. But Natalie, getting to him is going to be hard. He insulates himself. The documents are signed by your mother. Not him. The money went to accounts your mother controls. Technically, he likely took his cut in cash or consulting fees that look legitimate. So he walks away? Not if we can prove a conspiracy, Diane said. But first, we have to survive the hearing on Friday. Harbor Light is bringing out the big guns. The courtroom was freezing. It was a modern room with blonde wood paneling and buzzing fluorescent lights. I sat next to Diane. Marilyn was not there. Harbor Light Funding Group was represented by a man in a $3,000 suit named Mr. Sterling. He looked bored. Your Honor, Sterling said, standing up. This is a simple case of buyer's remorse. Ms. Ross's property had a mortgage. That mortgage was paid in full by my client's funds. Ms. Ross has benefited from a disbursement of over $200,000 to clear her prior debt. He picked up a piece of paper. We have a signed power of attorney. We have a signed loan agreement. We have a signed disbursement authorization. The fact that Ms. Ross is now claiming she didn't understand the terms is unfortunate, but it does not invalidate the debt. She cannot keep the house and the money. That is unjust enrichment. Diane stood up. She looked small next to Sterling, but she was vibrating with energy. Your Honor, there is no enrichment because there was no consent. The power of attorney is a forgery. We have submitted a forensic analysis from a certified examiner confirming it is a simulation. She held up the report. If the power of attorney is void, then every document signed with it is void. The deed transfer, the loan, the lien, they are all fruit of the poisonous tree. My client did not ask for this loan. She did not receive the money. It was diverted to an account controlled by the identity thief. To force her to repay a loan she never authorized is to make her an accessory to the crime committed against her. The judge, a stern woman with reading glasses perched on her nose, looked at the documents. Mr. Sterling, she asked, do you have the original wet ink power of attorney? We have a certified electronic copy. Your Honor, Sterling said smoothly. As is standard in the industry, the judge frowned. In a case alleging forgery, the original is material. Sterling didn't blink. He leaned over and whispered something to his associate. Then he turned back to the judge. Your Honor, given the complexities raised by Ms. Klein, my client is willing to offer a settlement to resolve this matter today. The judge looked at Diane. We huddled. What is it? I whispered. Sterling slid a paper across the table. Settlement agreement and release. Diane read it quickly. Her face darkened. Here is the offer, she whispered to me. They agree to restructure the loan. They will drop the principal balance to $200,000. They will lower the interest rate to 10%. You keep the house. They keep the lien. And in exchange, she pointed to paragraph 5. Plaintiff agrees to dismiss all claims of fraud, forgery, and negligence with prejudice. Plaintiff acknowledges the validity of the debt and agrees to a strict non-disparagement clause. I looked at the numbers, $200,000 at 10%. It would double my monthly payment. I would be paying it for 30 years. I would be paying for my own theft, but I would keep the house. And if I signed this, the fraud investigation would stop. Marilyn would be safe. The civil matter would be closed. It was a trap disguised as a life raft. Diane looked at me. It is a guaranteed loss, Natalie, but it is a survivable one. If we fight and we lose, they take the house and you still owe the money. And even if we win, the judge refers this to the district attorney. I said, yes. I looked at Mr. Sterling, who was checking his watch. I looked at the judge. I thought about Greg Halden living in his truck. I thought about Tessa. I thought about Marilyn screaming in the lobby. If I signed this, I was agreeing that what they did was okay. I was agreeing that my signature didn't belong to me. I was agreeing to be a victim for the rest of my life. No, I said. Diane looked at me. Are you sure? No deal. I said loud enough for Sterling to hear. I stood up. Your Honor, I addressed the judge. I reject the settlement. Sterling looked annoyed. Your Honor, this is a generous offer. It is a bribe. I said, my voice shaking. I did not sign those papers. That is not my signature. That is not my debt. I am asking the court to make a finding of fraud. I am submitting the forensic report into evidence. and I am requesting that this matter be referred to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation." The room went silent. Referral to the DA meant I was formally accusing my mother of a felony in open court. It was the nuclear option. The judge looked at me for a long moment. She saw the shaking of my hands. She saw the resolve in my jaw. "The court accepts the forensic report into evidence," the judge said. "We will proceed to trial on the merits of the forgery. And Mr. Sterling, until that authenticity is established, the temporary restraining order stands. No foreclosure, no interest accrual." She banged the gavel. I walked out of the courthouse feeling like I had been beaten with a bag of oranges. I had won the battle. The house was safe for now, but I had started the war. I got into my car. I put the key in the ignition, but I didn't turn it. I thought about Marilyn. I thought about the police knocking on her door. I thought about the look on her face when they put the handcuffs on her. I leaned my forehead against the steering wheel and screamed. It was a guttural, animal sound that scraped my throat. Then the tears came. Hot, scalding tears. I wasn't crying because I was weak. I wasn't crying because I was scared of Harbor Light or Robert Vane. I was crying because I knew I had done the right thing. And doing the right thing felt exactly like breaking my own heart. I had chosen myself. I had chosen the truth. And the cost was my mother. I sat there for 20 minutes, watching the rain start to streak the windshield. Then I wiped my face. I checked my mirror. I had a trial to prepare for. And I had a ghost named Robert Vane to hunt. I started the car and drove away from the courthouse, leaving the daughter I used to be in the rearview mirror. The courtroom for the final hearing was smaller than I expected. A windowless box on the third floor that smelled of floor wax and stale anxiety. It did not look like the place where my life would be returned to me, or where it would be dismantled for good. It just looked like a room full of tables and chairs, waiting for people to argue over the scraps of a family. I sat next to Diane. My hands were folded in my lap, knuckles white. On the other side of the aisle, Marilyn sat with a court-appointed public defender who looked like he had graduated from law school about 15 minutes ago. She was not looking at me. She was staring straight ahead at the judge's empty bench, her jaw set in a line of rigid, brittle determination. She wore a soft pink cardigan, the kind a grandmother would wear to bake cookies. It was a costume. Everything about her today was a costume designed to scream harmless elderly woman. Mr. Sterling, the attorney for Harbor Light, was checking his watch, looking bored. To him, this was just a Tuesday. To him, I was just a line item in a portfolio of distressed assets. The bailiff called the room to order. The Honorable Judge Sharon Vance swept in. She was a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor who had presided over the previous hearing. She looked at the piles of paper on the desks and sighed, a short, sharp sound that signaled she had little patience for games. Diane stood up first. "Your Honor," she began, her voice clear and steady, "we are here to determine the validity of the instruments recorded against my client's property. At the last hearing, we alleged forgery. Today, we are prepared to prove it." She picked up a thick binder. "We have received the notary journal from Caldwell Junction Notary Services pursuant to the court's order. It arrived via overnight courier yesterday morning." She walked to the witness stand, where Arthur Pendleton, the forensic examiner, was waiting to be recalled. But Diane did not ask him about ink pressure or tremor lines this time. She asked him about time. "Mr. Pendleton," she said, "please turn to page 42 of the journal. Can you read the entries for October 5th? Arthur adjusted his glasses. "Yes, there are 15 entries for that date." Diane nodded. "And can you read the names of the signers for entries 4 through 9? Arthur ran his finger down the page. Entry 4. Natalie J. Ross. Time, 9:15 in the morning. Entry 5. Natalie Ann Ross. Time, 9:18 in the morning. Entry 6. N. J. Ross. Time, 9:20 in the morning. Entry 7. Natalie Ross. Time, 9:22 in the morning. The courtroom went very quiet. Diane turned to the judge. "Your Honor, Unless my client has the ability to clone herself and sign 4 different variations of her name in 7 minutes, this is not a record of a notarization. It is a batch processing log. Someone sat in a room in Ohio, or perhaps in a back office here in town, and signed Natalie Ross over and over again on a stack of documents, using slightly different middle initials to see which one would pass the title company's verification software. Judge Vance leaned forward. Her eyebrows pulled together. "Let me see that log," she ordered. The bailiff took the binder and handed it up. The judge flipped the pages. She studied the lines, then she looked up, and her expression had shifted from skepticism to alarm. "Mr. Sterling," the judge said, her voice dropping to a dangerous register, "do you have an explanation for why your client's loan documents were notarized in a batch of 4 identical names in 7 minutes?" Sterling stood up, buttoning his jacket. He looked less bored now. "Your Honor, we rely on third-party verification. We were not present at the signing. If there was an irregularity with the notary—" "An irregularity?" The judge cut him off. "This looks like an assembly line." She turned back to Diane. "Call your witness." I took the stand. I had practiced this with Diane. Be angry. I had thought, be righteous. But sitting in that chair, looking out at the room, I did not feel angry. I felt exhausted. I felt the heavy, suffocating weight of the truth. "Ms. Ross," Diane asked, "did you sign the power of attorney dated October 5th? "No." I said, "Did you authorize your mother, or anyone else, to sign it for you?" "No." Diane paused. She walked closer to the stand. "Natalie, the defense has argued that you benefited from this transaction. They argue that because your original mortgage was paid off, you must have been part of the plan. Why did you not report this the moment you received the paid-in-full letter?" I looked at Marilyn. She was finally looking at me. Her eyes were wide, pleading. "Don't do it," she seemed to be saying. "Don't break the code." I took a breath. "Because I wanted it to be true," I said quietly. "Can you explain?" Diane asked. I looked at the judge. When you grow up with a parent like my mother, you learn to live in 2 realities. I said, "There is the reality of what is actually happening, the late notices, the disconnected phone, the chaos, and then there is the reality she tells you, the version where everything is fine, where the money is coming next week, where she is doing it all for you." I gripped the arms of the chair. I knew the letter was wrong. I continued. I knew the signature wasn't mine. But when she called me and told me she had done a wonderful thing, I wanted to believe her. It is emotionally easier to believe your mother is a hero than to accept she is a thief. I hesitated because I was trained to protect her. I was trained to believe that her love justified her lies. Marilyn let out a small, strangled sound from the defense table. But the small betrayals make the big one possible. I said, my voice gaining strength. The time she used my name for the electric bill when I was 12, the time she used my credit card for groceries that turned out to be new clothes, I forgave those. I let them go. And because I let them go, she thought she could take the house. She thought I would never stop her. I looked directly at Marilyn. I am stopping her now. Diane sat down. "Mr." Sterling stood up for cross-examination. He looked at me like I was a bug he wanted to squash. But he knew the judge was watching. "Ms. Ross," he said, "you say you didn't sign. But isn't it true that you gave your mother a key to your house?" "Yes," I said. "And isn't it true that you have lent her money in the past?" "Yes." "So there is a pattern of you mixing your finances with hers?" "There is a pattern of her taking." I corrected, "Not of me giving." Sterling smirked. "A convenient distinction. No further questions." Then it was Marilyn's turn. Her public defender whispered something to her, likely telling her to plead the fifth, to stay silent, but Marilyn shook her head. She stood up. She wanted to talk. She needed to explain. She took the oath. She sat in the chair. She smoothed her pink cardigan. "Mrs. Ross," her lawyer asked nervously, "did you sign your daughter's name to these documents?" Marilyn smiled. It was a benevolent, forgiving smile. "I signed as her agent," she said. "We have an understanding." Natalie and I, It is a family trust. We share everything. I knew she was stressed about her mortgage payments. I knew she was working too hard. I wanted to lift that burden. And you believed you had her permission? Implied permission, Marilyn said. Nodding. We are mother and daughter. What is mine is hers. What is hers is mine. Diane stood up for cross-examination. She looked like a wolf who had just spotted a wounded deer. Mrs. Ross, Diane said, you say you had implied permission. But you also had a physical document, a power of attorney. Where was that document signed? Marilyn hesitated. Her eyes darted to the left. At her house, she said, on the kitchen table. And was a notary present? Marilyn blinked. Yes, of course. Who was the notary? A woman? Marilyn said, I do not remember her name. A nice lady. Diane picked up the journal. The journal says the notary was Brenda Halloway, and the location of the notarization is listed as Caldwell Junction, Ohio. Were you in Ohio on October 5th? Marilyn's face flushed. No, I was here. So the notary came to you? From Ohio? Marilyn shifted in her seat. Well, maybe she was visiting. I do not ask for people's travel itineraries. Diane stepped closer. Mrs. Ross, we have a witness from the title company who says the documents were brought in by a courier. We have a text message from you to your daughter saying you didn't do the notary part. Which is it? Did you sign it at the kitchen table with a lady from Ohio? Or did you give the papers to a man named Ronan Vale to handle the stamps? Marilyn froze. The name hung in the air. I do not know a Ronan Vale. Diane pulled a piece of paper from her stack. This is a subpoenaed call log from your cell phone. Diane said, on October 4th, the day before the signing, you spoke to a number registered to a Robert Vane for 45 minutes. You spoke to him again on October 5th, and again on the day the loan funded. Who is Robert Vane? Marilyn started to shake. The pink cardigan suddenly seemed very thin. He is a consultant, she stammered. Did he tell you to forge the signature? No, Marilyn cried. Did he tell you to lie about the notary? No, he just said he would handle it. Handle what, Mrs. Ross? Handle the theft of your daughter's equity? I was trying to save us, Marilyn blurred out. The scream tore through the courtroom, raw and jagged. She stood up, gripping the railing of the witness box. You do not understand. I was drowning. The debts were going to crush me. I needed a reset. I thought if I could just borrow the money, invest it, and pay it back, nobody would know. I did it for us. I did it to protect the family legacy. The courtroom went still. Even the air conditioner seemed to stop humming. Diane let the silence stretch. She let the confession hang there, vibrating in the cool air. So you admit, Diane said softly, that you took the money to pay your own debts? Marilyn looked around the room. She saw the judge's stony face. She saw Mr. Sterling closing his folder. She saw me, looking at her not with anger, but with a terrible, crushing pity. The energy went out of her. She slumped back into the chair. I just wanted to fix it, she whispered. I just wanted to be the one who fixed it. Judge Vance cleared her throat. The court has heard enough, she said. She turned to the clerk. I am granting the plaintiff's request for a preliminary injunction. The transfer of the deed to the Ross Family Home Trust is frozen. Harbor Light Funding Group is hereby enjoined from taking any enforcement action, including foreclosure or credit reporting, against Ms. Ross or the property located at 1402 Maplewood Drive. She looked at Mr. Sterling. Furthermore, I am referring the evidence of notary fraud and the testimony given here today to the District Attorney's Office for immediate investigation into a potential pattern of racketeering. This is not just a family dispute. This is a crime. She banged the gavel. It was a win. The house was safe. The debt was frozen. But as the sound of the gavel faded, I did not feel like cheering. I felt hollow. A pending investigation is not an ending. It is a hallway. It is a long, dark corridor that I would have to walk down for months, maybe years. I stood up. Diane squeezed my shoulder. You did good, she said. I looked at Marilyn. She was sitting alone at the defense table. Her lawyer was packing up his briefcase, already mentally moving on to his next case. Marilyn was staring at her hands. She looked small. She looked old. I wanted to go to her. I wanted to hug her. But I knew that if I did, she would just pull me back into the lie. She would whisper that we could still fix this, that we could run away, that it was all a mistake. So I turned my back on her and walked toward the door. The sun outside the courthouse was blinding. It was a crisp, clear afternoon, the kind of day that makes you feel like anything is possible. But I felt like I was walking through water. I stood on the steps, breathing in the cold air. Diane was talking to a reporter who had wandered in for the verdict. I stepped away, needing a moment of silence. That was when I saw him. He was standing across the street, leaning against a gray sedan. He was wearing a beige trench coat and sunglasses. He looked completely unremarkable. He looked like an accountant or a dad waiting to pick up his kid from school. But I knew the posture. I knew the way he held himself. Like he owned the pavement he was standing on. Ronan Vale, or Robert Vane, or whatever name he was using today. He wasn't close enough for me to shout at him. He wasn't close enough for a confrontation. He was just there. He saw me looking. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He just lifted his chin in a small, almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't a threat. It was an acknowledgement. Game over. You won this round. I am closing the file. He opened the car door and slid inside. The gray sedan pulled into traffic and disappeared. I realized then that this was never just Marilyn's mess. She was the weapon, but he was the hand that aimed it, and he was driving away. He would go to the next town, find the next desperate mother, the next church financial workshop, and start the machine all over again. Ms. Ross? I turned. A man in a cheap suit was standing near the bottom of the steps. He was holding a stack of papers. Marilyn and her lawyer were coming out of the courthouse doors. Marilyn was wearing sunglasses now, trying to hide her swollen eyes. The man stepped in front of her. "Marilyn Ross?" he asked. She stopped. "Yes?" "You are served," he said, thrusting the papers into her hand. She looked at them. "What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Notice of referral for identity fraud and grand larceny," the man said. "You will need to contact the detective listed on the front page within 24 hours to arrange for processing." Processing. That meant booking. Fingerprints. Mugshot. Marilyn stood frozen on the sidewalk. People brushed past her, ignoring the drama. She looked at the papers. Then she looked up at me. Her face crumpled. It wasn't anger this time. It was a look of absolute, terrifying betrayal. She looked at me like I was the one who had stolen from her. Like I was the one who had broken the covenant. "You did this," she mouthed. She didn't say it out loud. She just mouthed the words. I felt a sharp, physical pain in my chest. It wasn't triumph. It was grief. Pure, unadulterated grief. I understood in that moment that she loved me. She really did. But she loved me in the only broken, twisted way she knew how. She loved me as an extension of herself. She loved me as an asset to be leveraged. And by cutting the cord, I hadn't just saved my house. I had killed the only version of a mother I had. I watched her walk to her car. Her shoulders hunched, the papers clutched in her hand like a death sentence. I did not follow her. I drove home in silence. The radio felt too loud. The world felt too loud. When I pulled into my driveway, the house looked different. For weeks, it had felt like a battlefield. Now, it just looked like a house, a pile of wood and brick that I had fought for, bled for, and orphaned myself for. I unlocked the front door. The air inside was stale. I walked into the kitchen to drop my keys on the table, and I stopped, on the center of the kitchen table, where I had left nothing but a bowl of fruit. There was an envelope. It was the paid in full letter, the original one from Redwood Crest Servicing. I felt the blood drain from my extremities. I had given that letter to Diane. It was in the evidence binder. I walked closer. It wasn't the original. It was a copy, a fresh, crisp color copy, but it wasn't alone. Underneath it was a second envelope. This one was plain, unmarked, and thick. I reached out, my hand shaking, and opened it. I pulled out the contents. It was a stack of papers, copies of mortgage documents. Satisfaction of mortgage. Greg Halden. Satisfaction of mortgage. Tessa Larkin. Satisfaction of mortgage. Sarah Jenkins. Satisfaction of mortgage. David Miller. There were dozens of them, a portfolio of victims, a catalog of stolen homes. And on top of the stack was a yellow sticky note. The handwriting was neat, precise, and familiar. It was the same handwriting I had seen on the courier note at the recorder's office. "You're not the only one. Stop digging if you want to keep the house." I dropped the papers. They scattered across the floor. A confetti of fraud. He had been here, Ronan Vale, or one of his couriers, or one of his notaries, while I was in court, while I was testifying, while the judge was banging her gavel. Someone had walked into my home. They had bypassed the locks. They had bypassed the alarm. They had come in not to steal, but to leave a message. "We know where you live. We know what you have. And this isn't over." I looked at the back door. It was locked. I looked at the windows. They were unbroken. I backed out of the kitchen. I went into the living room and sat on the floor, my back against the wall, facing the front door. I pulled my knees to my chest. I had won the hearing. I had stopped Marilyn, but as the sun went down and the shadows stretched across the floor, I realized the judge was right. The investigation was just a hallway. I picked up my phone to call Diane, but I hesitated. What could she do tonight? The police would take a report, file it, and tell me to get a security system. I was alone. I stared at the front door. The house was quiet, too quiet. This place was my shelter. It was the only thing I owned. But as I sat there, listening to the settling groans of the timber, feeling the draft from the window, I realized it was something else too. It was bait, and something told me the sharks were still circling. Thank you for listening to A Paid in Full Notice, Hit My Mortgage. My mom forged my signature to take my house, and this was a story about the terrifying fragility of the things we think are secure, our homes, our identities, and the people we love. It's a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous threats don't come from strangers in the dark, but from the people who have a key to the front door. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Natalie's choice. Did she do the right thing by reporting her mother? Or is the bond of family worth more than a house? And what do you think Ronan Vale's next move is? Please leave a comment below letting me know where you are listening from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you enjoyed this, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories for more tales of justice, betrayal, and the long road to the truth. Stay safe, check your credit reports, and I'll see you in the next story.